When we face a problem, we usually default to the methods we already know. Familiar routines offer an immediate sense of comfort, saving us the mental effort of starting from scratch. But when we move from daily habits into a logical debate, that feeling of comfort loses its value. Personal nostalgia provides zero proof that a solution actually works. Look at this side-by-side comparison. On the left, we have the warmth of tradition. On the right, the sharp analysis of evidence. When someone tries to persuade you by pointing to their reverence for a past practice, instead of offering current evidence, they are committing the appeal to tradition fallacy. As you can see here, relying strictly on historical comfort creates a blind spot. It actively blocks incoming data, preventing us from seeing when an old solution completely fails to fit a modern problem. To understand why this fails, we need to look at the relevance criterion. Think of this as a balanced scale used to weigh logical arguments. The rule is simple. A premise must provide actual evidence for the truth or merit of a conclusion. Watch what happens when we drop an emotional attachment to the past onto the scale. The scale doesn't move. No matter how heavy the tradition feels to the person arguing for it, it carries zero logical weight regarding a present-day decision. In fact, applying that dead weight actively breaks the mechanism. Powerful traditions often perpetuate injustices and block objectively better ways of doing things, simply because they demand to be weighed without providing any real evidence. Let's look at how this plays out in a personal setting. Imagine a father who is upset because his daughter is leaving the family's traditional church, like the one in this photograph, to join a different denomination. He argues that she shouldn't leave because, as this graphic shows, their family has an unbroken lineage of being Southern Baptist. That is his entire premise. As the family tree expands across the screen, notice what it covers up. The daughter's decision is likely based on complex theological and ecclesiastical considerations. The father's argument completely ignores those factors. The appeal to tradition cloaks the real conversation. By fading out the actual theology, the arguer forces the debate to be about family loyalty rather than the objective merits of the issue at hand. This flaw becomes even clearer when we scale up to institutional policies. This image shows cadets at the Virginia Military Institute. For decades, the school used tradition to argue against women enrolling. Their central premise was that VMI had operated as an all-male institution since the era of Stonewall Jackson. The rigid, unchanging line of soldiers was treated as the ultimate justification. But VMI is a tax-supported public college, and modern anti-discrimination laws prohibit gender exclusion. The Supreme Court, seen here, represents legal principles superseding institutional precedent. When fundamental legal rights are on the line, the length of time a school has maintained a practice offers no defense. Reverence for the past becomes entirely irrelevant to determining current policy. Let's test this concept on a cultural practice. Here is an argument map. The premise is that non-Jewish parents must circumcise their baby boys, simply because boys have usually been circumcised in our culture. That premise points directly to the conclusion: perform the procedure. I want you to pause the video right here. If this is an appeal to tradition, what higher principles or real-world evidence is this argument purposefully ignoring? Here is the missing evidence. Current medical consensus generally does not support the practice on health grounds. The procedure inflicts physical pain on the infant, and it carries an unnecessary financial cost. As these real-world data points crush the original premise, the link to the conclusion breaks. Lazily accepting a tradition without weighing it against updated evidence can cause tangible harm. So, how do you handle this in a real conversation without causing unnecessary conflict? We can use a simple dialogue tree built around the yes-but strategy. Step 1. Validate the past. Explicitly assure your opponent that there is nothing intrinsically wrong with tradition itself. This lowers their defensive barriers and acknowledges their feelings. Step 2. Pivot to a higher principle. Clearly state the specific legal, medical, or moral data point that conflicts with the tradition in this exact instance. By bypassing a direct attack on their identity, you reach an evidence-based resolution. You force the opponent to defend their view using present-day facts, rather than letting them retreat into historical comfort. This cheat sheet brings it all together. The appeal to tradition elevates reverence over evidence.
It fails because it violates the relevance criterion. The fix is to validate, then pivot to higher principles. Letting go of a flawed tradition does not erase history. It simply allows us to weigh the facts we have today so we can make better decisions for the future.